live, and we're completely unrehearsed. Hey, Rob, with two comedians here, so we should have some fun today.
Absolutely.
Let me do a little intro, okay? Now,
sure.
This is for the Sri Chinmoy Disciple Experience project that we're doing. I'm interviewing disciples, former disciples. I interviewed a current disciple earlier today. I'm now interviewing one of the all-time great disciples, Rob, who we used to know in the center as the nephew of the universe because he was Alo Devi's nephew. So, Rob, just briefly, tell me, before we launch into the disciple experience, well, I know you're doing a lot in comedy now and your career is taking off, so tell me what you're doing right now.
Oh, well, I'm doing some stand-up around L.A. I did a web series recently called Between Jupiter and Mars. Did really well, and we're now doing more web series this year. We're gonna do a second season of that, and we're gonna also trying to parlay it into a television series. And we have another TV series that's based on called Personal Growth, which is about the personal growth movement, but it's a comedy. So we're working on that one.
I saw one of those episodes, Personal Growth episode. That was good. Right.
So that's gonna be fun, and yeah, having a lot of fun.
Were you an astrologer or something?
No, maybe you saw something else because we haven't done it yet, but we did, yeah.
I saw something where it was the personal growth. You were an agent, but you were trying to help people spiritually or something. You know,
that's the one. That's Between Jupiter and Mars.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, and we're turning that into a TV series, but you know, people want to hear about my disciple experience. Okay, so we can follow your career on Facebook because you know, you post those updates. But let's suffice it to say that I'm in LA now and I'm living the dream. You are. So you're in LA and you're also mentoring people who want to move to LA and get into the business. That is right. I am helping people who especially want to come and get green cards and visas. I sort of counsel them, and we're also doing some workshops here, personal growth type workshops, and stuff around Course in Miracles and that sort of thing. So my wife and I are doing quite a bit in LA. Okay, that sounds great. Now let's go right to the disciple experience. So give me a little time frame here. I love the time frame. You were a disciple from when to when? Well, I became a disciple in 1972. I was 12 years old, and the way it happened was that my aunt, you know, is Alo Devi, and when my parents split up when I was 12, my mother and my sister decided to move to Ottawa because my mother was friends with the Mukti and Maitreya, who basically started the Canadian centers, and I went with him to Ottawa, and that was the first time that actually I'd met Sri Chinmoy when I was 6, because we traveled to we were on our way to Israel, and we stopped off in New York, and we went to this hotel room where my aunt was there with Sri Chinmoy, and we all met him. And I always told the story that I was really impressed with him because he gave me not just one but 2 chocolate bars, and I'd never had anybody give me 2 chocolate bars before, so he really kind of won my heart with that. That was a double dose of prasad. Usually you only get 1 donut or 1 chocolate bar. So your soul must have really come to the fore, as we used to say. Yeah, I was blown away. You know, he knew how to get to my heart through my stomach. So, and then, so I didn't think much about it after. I just, you know, I knew I had this strange aunt who I'd really hardly ever seen, and who went to India when I was a little kid. We had really not much contact with her, but my next exposure was I remember reading a book that my mom had when I guess she was thinking about becoming a disciple, and it was Children's Conversations with God, and I remember reading it with my buddy and just laughing and thinking this is the most ridiculous thing I'd ever read in my life. And then a year later, I was a disciple. And the way it happened was I actually asked to become a disciple. So I mean, although I was 12 and obviously there was a lot of, everybody around me was, in that world, I still felt something. I still felt a calling. And when we first went to Montreal and the first time I saw Guru, nobody told me to do it. I put up my hand and I said, I want to become a disciple. And he said that I was like the youngest person who had ever done that. So I did come to it.
No, you were special. I'll say this: when you came around, and your spiritual name was Garanga, I was Swadine in those days, and you were a special kid. I mean, everybody thought you were so great, and apparently Guru did too. So what happened? What happened to you? Where did you go wrong? Where did you go wrong?
What did I do wrong? Can you be more specific? You want to know what happened after that?
You know what? I'll tell you what. Chirantan had a good idea. He said, let disciples ask questions, so it's not just me asking questions. So we have a number of questions that disciples have raised on our Yahoo, not Yahoo, Facebook group. So
sure.
So Bitika wanted to know. Let's deal with these good questions. They're good questions. Now, she'd like to hear about your childhood, teen experiences within the center. You've touched on that, and now
yes.
how you coped and what kinds of things that you had to work through to adjust to after the center. You had to make some adjustments after the center. I'll give you the whole thing, and you can kind of wing it. And she wants to know how you experienced, what was your understanding of Alo Devi, because she was obviously your aunt at the same time. When I was a disciple, I was told that she was Guru's female counterpart, and that she was indeed the mother of the universe in to all practical purposes. And he was the father, she was the mother, and you were the nephew. And anyway, okay, so that's and she wants to know, what's your relationship to Alo Devi now, or I don't know, maybe you call her by her English name, Beverly. I don't know what you do. And is she really, are you allowed to have contact with her? The story is she's being sequestered in Hawaii, by her attendants closely guarding her. Now, I don't know, but that's the story. So address those issues, if you will.
Okay. That's a lot. Because I got to go back to my teenage years, which are and that's never fun. Yeah, so I mean, I pretty much grew up in the center, with my family, and it was, I mean, I was fully invested in it, but I also had this other life. I had normal friends and all that, and I wasn't in New York, so I wasn't immersed in it all the time. So it really was a time of tremendous conflict when I look back at it, because not only did I have my brothers and my father who were like dead against this Sri Chinmoy Center and just thought it was ridiculous, and they were actually, I think, angry and sad that my family got me involved in it, that my sister and I were involved in it. So I had them and my brothers pulling me one way, and I had my sister and my mother and the whole center pulling me the other way. So it was a difficult time, and I was also going through puberty and and having the hormones and all that. It was, I think, a very confusing time. So I kind of felt like I was living in two worlds. And when I was in New York, I was the disciple, I was Garanga, and when I came back, I was Rob. And I think some of the early memories I have was the Guru taking me in a car. I remember I was with Jayanti and Samarpana and Rudra and Ketan, and we went to Connecticut, and he said, my hair was long because that was the style back then, and he said, okay, we're going to go get a haircut. So he took me to his barber, and I was like, this was like more devastating to me than anything, and he sat me down in the barber's chair, and he said, okay, cut his hair. And I'm like, okay, to the barber, not too short, and then Guru saying, no, short. So they really scalped me, and when I got home, I looked ridiculous, and it was kind of devastating. So that was one thing. But my relationship with oh, and I remember going into the Smile of the Beyond. I remember probably when I was 13, Guru asked me to do some selfless service one of those celebrations, and I remember going in and working with you, Swadine, and having a great time. And you kind of taught me how to scoop the ice cream so that there was like air in the middle, so that
Yeah, we didn't want to give them too much. It's called portion. Remember, portion control.
Yeah.
Don't give them too much.
That was a hoot. I had a great time working there with you, and I remember one time, the first time I met Santana, he came in. Devadeep and Urmila and her sister all came in, and that's when I met them for the first time, and we took pictures. And later on, I became pretty good friends with Devadeep. We hung out every time that we were together. We hung out like buddies. So that was, I think he liked my youth, my innocence. So what other questions here? Let's see. I don't. About Alo Devi, you want me to talk about that, or
wait?
Want me to jump ahead?
We have a dog problem. Okay, no, my dog is barking. No, I'm sorry. So what was the what was that? I got distracted because the dog was barking.
Did you want me to jump into the Alo stuff?
Yeah, because the Alo stuff is very interesting because a lot of people, don't know about Alo because the Guru got all the publicity and Alo was kind of shunted to the side there, but for the first few years of my discipleship, Alo was, again, was, an equal of Guru, and then all of a sudden she faded away. So yeah, let's talk about the Alo situation.
Well, as I said, I didn't know her that well. I mean, she never really was an aunt to me. I don't think she ever really felt like an aunt, or like we were her nephews. I mean, I don't think she really considered family to be that important. So, although we did have some relationship like that, and she did come to some family events and so forth. It wasn't a close relationship or anything, but I did have access to her, and I think because of her, I had more access to Guru, and I think Guru considered me, because of that relationship, to be like a nephew of his. So, thus the nephew of the universe. I remember also that we were in Canada, especially, we were very devoted to Alo, and we did believe that she was on equal grounds with Guru. Until some point in time when rumors started going around that she had lost her realization, and people were whispering to each other and saying, hey, Alo's not really what she says she was, but we're going to not let her in on it. So I always felt really bad about that, as I think a lot of people did. I think in some ways she's a great lady. Very, very intelligent. I think she probably had a pretty rough upbringing, from what I've heard, and she got she got caught up in all this stuff, and I don't know if she knew how to handle it, but it's kind of sad that the way it turned out, I think.
Well, what about now, though? What about now? Do you have any connection to her? Do you know what's happening with her? We hear she's kind of kept under lock and key in Maui.
I don't know if that's true. I think she's pretty old now, and I think she's not fully well. I think she's slowed down a bit, maybe even mentally, and so I don't think she has the desire, the stamina to go to New York and to really be involved much anymore. From what I hear through the grapevine, I can't say anything that's really fact, but that's what I hear.
I've got a good question here from Becky. She says, okay. Becky, who's part of our group, and in fact was one of the people that I've interviewed so far. She says, she wants to hear about your highs and your lows as a disciple. And I have a question for you first, but she wants to hear about your highs and your lows and what, why you finally left the center. My question before that is, were you ever a true believer? I mean, I was for several years, but were you ever really a true believer in that Guru was the greatest avatar of all time and nobody was going to be like him again for another 500,000 years, that kind of thing?
Absolutely, I was. Yeah, I was. I think there was a time when I never would have considered leaving the center. If people asked me, and they did, I was like, I will never leave the center. I'm here for life, because I did believe that strongly in what was going on, and I mean, I never had any. I mean, I always saw things a little bit dualistically. Like I saw that Sri Chinmoy was a man too, and I think in some ways, I related to him just as a human being. And I think that's one of the things that he liked about me, is that I didn't always come to him with the reverence. I mean, there were times when I did in the meditations and so forth, but a lot of times I would just chat with him, and I think he felt comfortable with me in that way. But yeah, I totally believed in him completely, and I think when things started changing for me I was about 25, and I'd moved to Toronto, and I'd opened my second music store, and I'd had a few experiences with women. I'd had a few girlfriends sort of on the side. It was always a very guilt-ridden thing. I mean, I think I wrote about this a little bit in the blog, but I'd never ever considered, being with a disciple woman, because I saw the disasters that happened there and all the drama that it caused. But I did sort of dabble a little bit outside, with the vital, and not in a big way. And but it started to get to me after a while, and it was like I knew that there was a part of me that really wanted to have, a human, normal relationship with a woman, and I'd never really had that. I mean, I'd never really had the space to actually like fall in love with a woman or to be in a relationship with a woman. And part of me, because I'm human, wanted that. And growing up in the center as a young person, as a child, I mean, it's different, because I think some of the people who came like in your generation, had already had some experiences. You'd had a life already, and I think also my mother was, just to bring that in, my mother, who's still in the group now, but she's 84. I think she wanted me to have a life in a way too, and she always felt maybe a little bit guilty that I didn't. So when it came to my mid to late 20s, I was starting to lose it, and the fun wasn't happening anymore in the center. I felt like I was, like you said one time, losing my aspiration. The meditations were still good and everything, but I started. I think the main thing that came to me was that I wasn't living my life. I was living my life for Guru and for the center, and everything was revolving around him, what he was doing, his endeavors, his path. And I think I was naive in the early days, thinking that I was still going to be allowed to, be a comedian and be a filmmaker and all that stuff. I'd given all that up to open music stores that, that Guru had told me to open up. And I realized I was never going to it was never going to happen. I was there, if I stayed in the center, I was there to serve Guru in the path and not my life. So I think that was the defining moment, and I said I can't do this anymore. And then I was also found myself like chatting up like German disciple girls and stuff at the circus, and I'm like, I'm getting too close to, crossing that line. So something's wrong here. I can't keep going like this. So I remember I wrote Guru a letter. I mean, I thought about it for a long time, probably a couple years. It took me to really get to that place where I had the guts and the nerve to do it. And I wrote Guru a letter, And the response that I got was from Guru was that he was devastated. It was like the atomic, like the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs had dropped. He was, his world was, he was devastated. That's the message I got. And he wanted to talk to me about it. He wanted me to come back, just give him one last chance to come back and talk to him. So with a lot of pressure from my sister and other people, my friends in the center, I went to New York and I talked to him. And that was a really strange little meeting, because he sat me down in his kitchen and he was like, so, what's the problem? Is it that you want to be in a rock and roll band? Like, you want to do what Devadeep's doing? If you want to do that, I'll let you do it. If you want to do a different kind of job or something, I'll let you do it. So he was kind of like giving me space. He says, just don't leave the boat. Just don't leave the boat. That's all I'm asking of you. And I was like, well, but what about, I feel like I want to and need to have a relationship with a woman. And he's like, well, and he kind of dismissed me. He says, well, listen, if you fall down, you just get back up again. So I kind of took that to mean like, okay, if you end up having sex or something, then you just deal with it, take a shower, meditate, and come back and
light some candles and burn some incense, and then you're back to being good.
Yeah, happens to everybody. But that really wasn't good enough, because I did know in my heart of hearts that I wanted to do something else. But I gave it another chance. I said, okay, I'll give it 3 months. I gave it 3 months, and I was suffering so much in those 3 months. I finally just wrote the final letter, and after I mailed that letter, I remember I was in Toronto. I put the letter in the mailbox. I felt so free. I started dancing in the street, and I was just like, it was the freest and the best I had ever felt. It's like, oh my God, I now am the master of my own destiny. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm scared. I don't have the support anymore, but it's an adventure, and I'm in charge of the adventure now.
I had the exact same experience in my own way the day I packed everything in my rented U-Haul truck, and as I was leaving Queens, going over the Throgs Neck Bridge into on my way to Connecticut and my new life, I had the same experience. I never felt so free in my life, relieved of the whole pressure of the discipleship. And Yogaloy mentioned this, and I fall into the same category you. We did the honorable thing. We no longer could live up to the standards that were set, and that whether it was lower vital or whatever it was, we weren't playing the game according to what we thought were what were the rules. Now the irony, of course, is that Guru wasn't playing by the rules either, but then he made up the rules, so then he could do what he wanted. So it really pissed me off when I found out, that he was having sex with all these girls, and I was thinking, I can't, just like you said, I can't be a disciple because I can't, do this thing for the rest of my life. And then he was apparently having sex with not one, not two, but a whole bunch of women. Now, what do you make of that whole thing? By the way, I spoke to a current disciple this morning from Germany who has a real different take on it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go into it because I put the recording there, but I'm saying, so what's your take on the whole sexual allegation thing? I think they're more than allegations, but I wasn't there. So.
Well, before I address that, and I will, I just wanted to say, because I think it's important about people who feel like maybe they want to leave or they don't know how. I really get it. I mean, kudos to somebody like Bitaka or other kids who are, real kids who are who grew up in the center. It's very difficult to leave. There's so much fear around it, and to leave your comfort zone, to leave your support group and all that. So for me, it was like, after leaving was really the hard part, because I had to adjust back to a normal life, and I wasn't a normal person in the sense of how normal kids develop and young adults. I remember that my first relationship was like a disaster because I had no idea how to be intimate. I had no idea how to really relate to another person, particularly a woman on that level. My ideas about sex were weird. Because there'd been so much suppression of it. And I remember finally went to a psychologist, and he was like really a top psychologist. And I remember, I think I was 31 at the time, and he said to me, you are a very intelligent guy, and but on an emotional maturity level, you present as about a 13-year-old. And that really hit me like a ton of bricks. It's like, oh my God, like emotionally, I've been, stuck since I joined the center.
Well, hold on. And that's not surprising because in the center, you're a boy or you're a girl. You could be 5 or you could be 55. It's like boys and girls. And so that you're conditioned to be a little child. And then when you go out, and I had the same experience too, then you go out into the real world and you try to have relationships, and it's like, yeah, you're really you really are emotional. I mean, I can relate to that. I was emotionally, maybe I'm done where I am now, but emotionally, yeah, I wasn't up to speed. So I know what you're saying. It's like we had fixed.
I've done a lot of work since then, and I think now I'm emotionally at about 17. So
I'm 18 and a half, but I'm working on it. I'll be able to drink legally, I think, in another year and a half.
No, it took a long time. It took a long time to, because I think the path is, in a way, you're developing on one level, and I think, as many have said, it was a unique and incredible experience for a lot of people. But we were focusing on one aspect of ourselves, the spiritual aspect, the heart, and we were kind of denying a whole other aspect of ourselves, I think. Which is just that human part and that need to grow up, to evolve, being master of your own domain. And so it's anyway, it was, I think everybody has their journey, and that was my journey. But to answer your question about the allegations and all that, you just said, what is my take on it?
Yeah, in other words, yeah, what's your take on that? Do you believe these women, or do you think they're making it up, or what?
Well, when I first heard about it, was it 2001 or something?
Yes, yeah. Savica was the first story to break, and about 2001, I was leaving. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'd been out of the center for quite a while, but I'd still had, even after I left, I still had ties to it. And I like going on the Christmas trips, and eventually, Guru allowed me to come on the Christmas trips, so I'd go sometimes. And I was I was not in the center, but I was still, enjoying the parts of it that I liked, so the meditations and the friends and all that. So I was still entangled in a way, I think, when I look back on it. I hadn't fully pulled myself from it. And when I finally read that, or when I read that stuff on the internet, I was stunned. I think a part of me, I didn't disbelieve it, but I wanted to know if it was true. I wanted some kind of proof or some kind of, something. But a part of me was like, nah, it didn't seem impossible. It didn't seem out of the realm of possibility. So I did some research on it, and I really, I talked to people. I think I talked to Pari Choi quite a bit, and Ulash, and those guys had really done their homework on it. They'd really, really dug into it and talked to people, and so I asked if I could talk to some of the women, and I did. I talked to Anne, and I talked to Sevica, who I knew as well. And when I talked to them, I had no doubt that they were telling the truth. Not at all. And I was devastated in a way, because in a way I felt vindicated because I'd left the center and, it wasn't all that it was said to be, and I think there was still some doubt in my mind that did I make the right decision? I think there's always that doubt when you leave something like that. So in a way I felt vindicated. And I also felt angry because I was told to live my life a certain way and to, not have sexual relationships. And so if he was doing that, then that to me was a real betrayal to me and to everybody else. And I understand, I have compassion for it as well. I mean, not to take anything away from the suffering or from the psychological and, effects that's had on the women, or anybody who was involved in that. But I also have compassion for, well, I shouldn't say compassion. I think I have an understanding of why that might have happened to him, because I think of his denial of his own humanity. So I can see how he could fall into something like that, being so in denial of that part of himself. And I think it's a pattern that's happened to other spiritual masters too. So you can see how many of them it's happened to. It's kind of a sad thing, because why do they have to be mutually exclusive? Why can't you be a spiritual person and have that ability, whatever ability Sri Chinmoy had, to lift people up or inspire people with his spiritual teachings, and but also be in touch with his own humanity and his own his own humanity.
Well, as many of us have said, it wasn't the sex that was the thing that really rankled us. It was the hypocrisy, the lies, the cover-up, and then also the blaming of the victim type of thing. In other words, to demonize the girls who came forward. So yeah, it's not the sex. Everybody does it, and it's perfectly normal and natural. But as you say, certain people go into denial about that aspect of themselves because they think it's impure or lower or whatever, but then it comes back to bite them in the ass ultimately anyway. And I think that's what happened to Sri Chinmoy, along with a whole bunch of other spiritual teachers or masters. But certainly, you no longer buy the greatest avatar of all time story. I mean, we bought that at one time, but that's no longer looming in your consciousness, I would imagine.
No. I mean, I see him as someone who I think in the early days had probably had something special and probably had a sincere desire or calling, as some other masters have had. And I think somewhere it went a little bit off. And, it happens when people get too much power and when people get people following them. And it's kind of sad because when I think about why people were there, it wasn't because of all the dogma and doctrine and all the rules and the lifestyle. It was because people felt something in the meditation. I mean, and I've said this before, but I think we have to give ourselves credit. Unlike some other groups, I think a lot of people who were in the Sri Chinmoy Center were pretty intelligent, savvy people, very creative people, and we did agree on a common thing, and I think we felt a common thing and saw a common thing, which was that there was this spiritual light, whether it came from him or it came from all of us as a collective, I don't know. But I think we were all there for the same reason. It was a meditation. It was that feeling that we got, which was something pretty special. So it's sad to me that everything got wrapped up in this other, it's all the garbage that goes around with it, and and I think the extreme, it's inevitable that something extreme is going to happen, like these sexual things that happened, because things get perverted and we lose track of why we're really there.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair assessment, and I feel almost exactly the same way. And I think a number of uh, ex-disciples feel that, certainly he had something, and certainly there was something going on there, and after a while, who knows what, it got a little, as you say, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. I think there's a lot of truth in that in the center. Now, what about your spiritual journey? Does it? I mean, we know your comedy career has burgeoned, and that took off. But now, what about? Do you still, are you still a spiritual seeker type, or you kind of left that behind?
No, I've always been, I think it shifted a little bit. I've always continued to be spiritually focused. I think I've found my own spirituality, like a lot of us have. I take things from different places. You introduced me to Nisargadatta, and I was really turned on by that. And then other people have turned me on to Course in Miracles and Buddhism, all sorts of things. So I take it a little bit from everywhere, and I've done a lot of personal growth type work. One of the things I did was like a 3-year course in transpersonal psychology. So I'm a registered professional counselor in that, and that's kind of a transpersonal, being a psychology that involves spirit and something beyond just the regular state of consciousness. So yeah, I meditate every morning. I just don't meditate on one person or have one particular way.
I think that's good. And I'm really happy to hear that the journey for you continues. Certainly, it continues for me, and certainly for a lot of other people. But we know people who basically have, I'll put it this way, thrown the baby out with the bathwater. They said that's a crock, and then they go, seem to deny the whole thing. But I think for the most part, the whatever brought you to the center, is still there when you leave the center, and it's going to, emerge sooner or later. It certainly was never too far from my mind, and it sounds like it was never too far from your mind either.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I hope that, I think I don't regret the experience. If I'd had more choice about it, I don't know. I was 12 years old, and I think it's maybe true for a lot of the younger people that were in it. I don't know how much choice we had about it. I think my life would have gone in a lot different direction, career-wise and so forth. But the experiences that I had were, I think, some really peak experiences, and I think a lot of ex-disciples would probably agree with that. They're some of the greatest experiences, and also a lot of the great people that I met and so forth. So I hope that the people that are still in it are really getting something out of it. As I said, my sister and my brother-in-law, my mother are still in there, and they maybe are not fully aware of all this stuff, or don't want to be aware of anything other than the story that's told, but they seem to still be enjoying it and getting something out of it. So my wish is that the Sri Chinmoy Center evolves itself and maybe becomes a little bit more transparent, and they start to look at themselves, and question themselves, which I think is important for any group to do, to mature and evolve and stop,
I think we all feel that way about the transparency aspect of things, and the center, in order to grow, we'll have to deal with this stuff now that it's all over the internet. But they seem to be in the same kind of denial that Guru was in terms of his own sexuality. I mean, that they don't want to entertain anything. They're not open to anything that would remotely challenge the myth and the legend of the world's greatest avatar, the Kalki avatar. So, I don't think the prospects are good, but who knows? What do I know? Prospects for transparency, that is.
I think one person by person, people will just look at their own, how it's working for them, and if it's working for them, great, and if it's not. But yeah, I'm glad that you're doing this, because it does show, you know, you want to hear from other people. I think an important thing is that it takes time to disentangle yourself from it. So it took me years, maybe because I was younger when I got into it, but there is a degree of mind control. And I don't want to get into talking about cult stuff, because there's, who knows, there's cults everywhere, you know, in all different aspects of society. But the culty aspect of the Sri Chinmoy Center was the mind control and being strongly encouraged and coerced even, you know, or with fear tactics to think a certain way. And it took a long time to disentangle that so that you can start to see things a little bit more clearly, and also look at, you know, patterns that are in other groups and that sort of thing. So I believe that everybody has their own journey, and the people that are still in the center are there because they want to be there. Maybe they're still in magical thinking land, but eventually, you know, they might change and see things a little bit more clearly and just try to put it in perspective a little bit better.
And hopefully these interviews, if they do get to see them, might, you know, give them another perspective, just like we'd be happy to hear their perspective. In fact, with the German disciple today, Matthias, I mean, he gave me his point of view. He's a disciple. He's a believer, and that's fine. So let 1,000 flowers bloom. Let everybody have their say, and then these people can see, you know, a fuller picture than just, you know, just to you talk about mind control, you know, just to buy the, you know, the official story or the you know, the official narrative. I mean, I don't think that serves anybody. Not to say that somebody has to come out on one side of the fence, let's say, that, or the other. No, it's as you say,
you know,
everybody has
free
their own
speech,
journey.
right?
You know,
I think free speech is important, and I think it's something that even Sri Chinmoy would have said that he was in favor of, and I think most disciples would say they're in favor of, and yet it's not really carried out because they weren't allowed to listen to a different point of view, and they're not supposed to listen to another point of view, and really decipher from hearing other people's opinions and facts. And, you know, I mean, I believe if they were encouraged or allowed to do that, then more people would maybe watch interviews like this and see what other people are saying, and then make an informed decision for themselves.
that would be the ideal.
That if we do that, it means that, you know, it's kind of a very immature kind of, you know, us and them kind of mentality. If you do that, then it means that you're betraying the guru, and you're betraying, and you're, you know, whatever other dire consequences might happen from talking to the other.
You know, that's the downside of cult-like thinking. In other words, it's us against them. We have the truth. That they're in ignorance, and if you want to, you know, lie down with dogs, you're going to get fleas, and so therefore you don't want to lower your vibration. So it's the same old story in all these groups. It's not about critical thinking. It's about obedience and just believing, you know, the true believer syndrome. Well, Rob, listen, any final thoughts?
No, it's been great. It's been great talking to you, and I really enjoy being on the group, and it's great to sort of reconnect with old friends and comrades. I'm actually going to be doing a one-man show called Nephew of the Universe.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding, and I got a grant from the Canada Council to do this, and I'm going to be putting on the show in LA later this year, and it's basically about my experience growing up in the Sri Chinmoy Center.
Listen, I promise you we'll fly out for that show. Let me know when is that show going to be?
I don't have a set date yet, but probably in the fall. And if it's successful, I might tour it around too and take it to New York and to some of the places. And then as part of that film that I interviewed.
Yeah, that's right. You interviewed me and Roger Calvary for that. Whatever happened to that film?
I kind of put it away because I didn't have a good way of finishing it. I wasn't. it's kind of an interesting story. I don't know if we're going over time here, but
no. Take all the time you want.
I went to I got a grant from the National Film Board, which is like, Canada's most prestigious documentary, government thing, and they gave me a grant to do this. And part of the research was to go to New York, and I was hoping to get an interview with my aunt, with Olo. So I called up Ashrita, and I talked to my sister, and basically it was all set up. They said, yeah, it looks pretty good. You come to New York, and Olo will probably, talk to you. And I'm like, I'm not gonna ask anything that you guys don't want me to ask her. You can even give me you can even edit it if you want. I just want to have her on tape and ask her some things about how she grew up and stuff. So I went to New York, and I had all my film. I was doing it all myself, but I had all my film equipment and everything. And I got there, and then the date was set, the time was set to meet Olo, and then I got a call from, I guess, Ashrita or somebody saying, oh, Olo had decided that she's not going to do the interview. And so I went and talked to her, and there were a few other disciples around, and they were saying, look, it's very bad if you shouldn't put anything on tape. This could get into the wrong hands. Anyway, the long and short of it was that I wasn't allowed to interview her, so that was going to be kind of the crux of the film, right. And it fell apart. But where I want to go with it now, because I did get some great interviews with yours truly and some other people. When I do the one-person show, I want to have disciples or ex-disciples come and watch it, and then after the show, have some commentary on it, Q&A, and that'll be part of the documentary.
Well, listen, I'll be there, and I'm sure Ann will be there too. We're coming out. Give us the date. We'll be out. I'm not going to miss that show. And maybe.
All right.
What? Can you get me on stage? Can I be on stage? Can I say something?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm only kidding. It's your show.
If you come down, I'll get you on stage.
No. Just give me a pass. Just give me a pass to come backstage, so I can be a groupie.
Okay.
I'll be a groupie.
All right. Deal.
Okay. No, I'm gonna be there. I wouldn't miss that. Okay, Nephew of the Universe. Thanks for joining us, and I'm sure a lot of people will be very interested in hearing what you have to say. It was a great. You have a great perspective, and you know what? Let me tell you something, Nephew. You're in a very good consciousness these days. Very good.
Oh, thank you, Swami. Thank you. Coming from you, that's. I can sleep well now.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go to sleep too. So, okay, have a good one, and we'll see you in the group. And listen, I'll see you in L.A. in the fall for the Nephew of the Universe one-man show.
All right, I'll keep you posted.
Definitely. Okay. Thanks.
All right.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Shanti Om.
Shanti Om.
Shanti Om.